Well, for more on the story, we cross to our reporter Mzwandile Mbeche, who's standing by for us. Mzwandile, so Pravin Gordhan has laid it down on the ground, saying, if you've got something to say, come to the commission and prove it.
Absolutely. And as he was saying that, Nompumelelo, you could hear the noise from outside. Remember, as we are sitting here inside the commission, those who are actually making those claims, who are calling for him to resign because they accuse him of all sorts of things, they are outside. The EFF, which is basically has mobilized to try and put pressure, and they were singing outside. Perhaps that's the reason why when we sat down after tea break, the judge basically said he's been made aware of the kind of noise that is coming through, making it very difficult for some of the people sitting here to hear. So basically, that was really the message to people like that, to say, well, whatever accusations you have, if you have proof, come to the commission. I'm ready to face them head on.
So, Mzwandile, what were the key themes that he touched on today? I see just now he was speaking to municipalities. I suppose that was during the time when he was the head of COCTA.
I think what he basically did today, Nompu, he was recounting the events that led to his reappointment as the Minister of Finance back in 2015. Remember, after Nen had been fired and with Minister Van Rooyen appointed for about 4 days, and then markets really doing their own thing, and then necessitating another change in the form of Minister Gordhan. So he was really explaining the kind of processes and the kind of engagements that were undertaken by various parties, including the officials in the ANC at the time, the Deputy President, then Cyril Ramaphosa, Jesse Duarte, then Deputy Secretary General. So basically trying to say, well, whatever did happen, but they wanted him to come back to calm the market. So he was speaking about those issues. But it was very interesting, Nompu, what he said after he had been appointed. He says after that meeting with the former president, President Zuma, he then said there are 3 things that he would like to raise with the president. And then he said the SAA and the role of its chairperson then, Dudumieni, and he spoke about the nuclear deal. And of course, SARS, the role of the former SARS commissioner, Tom Moyane. So those were some of the things that he raised when he had been appointed. But he didn't end there, Nombu. As you know, he has spoken extensively about what he says as soon as he had been reappointed. There were elements really that were not happy that he had been appointed, because in his view, the Treasury or those who were behind the state capture wanted to capture the Treasury. So that is why when he was reappointed, then he frustrated all those efforts. So when he was preparing for the budget, and then 2 weeks before that, he got a phone call from the then head of Hawks, Mr. Penning Clemenza, basically saying he wanted to meet him, even if it meant 5 minutes. So he recounts that, Nompu, as part of the pressure, really, to pressurize him to resign, because in his view, he was appointed because the situation had arisen, that situation of the markets, really, that were uncontrollable. So they needed a steady hand. As someone like him who had served for 5 years, the markets understood him very well, so he was going to be the right person. But there were those elements still who were not happy. That is why he said he faced all those kinds of pressures, even from some of his colleagues, and then him getting charged. So that is the essence, Nompu, of the evidence of the minister right now here at the commission. We have just adjourned for break, and then he will continue from 2 o'clock.
And very quickly, Mzwandile, it doesn't look as though he's really gone out of his way to name names. Of course, he's spoken about the role that the former President Jacob Zuma played, but he hasn't really spoken about the likes of Mosebenzi Zwane and others in the cabinet who most people suspect helped to facilitate state capture.
I think what the minister really has been saying, and if you just look at the thread of his argument from yesterday, he's been essentially saying the events really that were happening during all this time. So you have to connect the dots as to why event A happened and then why then event D turned out the way it did. So then it will really be up to people to see if this was part of the state capture. That is why I'm making an example of him being appointed in December 2015. But a month into his position, and then there is that kind of pressure again, because it shows that in his view, that appointment was forced. So, and then that appointment basically derailing the whole project of state capture. So as a result, he would want, I think, people to understand the circumstances and the type of processes, the type of appointments that were made, so which really all, when they come together, then you can then be able to see, well, so there was perhaps a grand plan to capture the treasury, which was the central point in the state capture project.
Okay, Ms. Wandile, we'll rejoin you when you resume at the inquiry. Thanks very much for that.